So moving on from plain cloth, this demonstration is going to be this patterned cloth. I've already got it to the stage where the form of the cloth scrunched up is laid in. So I've just been using a pale grey and a dark grey for that, just cool greys. You can see I've looked at where the main dark shadows are underneath and in the tight folds, and then just put a little bit of foundation. I've used a little bit of a blue on some of the highlights as well. Don't know if you can see that. When you've got it worked up to this point, if I were doing a commission or something and somebody wanted me to change the colour of what they were wearing, say, it's really easy to either not bother with the pattern, just by laying in a very pale glaze of any colour, you could change that from being, as it is now, white cloth to whatever colour you wanted. It's a really simple thing to do. Once you've got the form laid in, whatever you put over the top will follow that form, especially if you pay attention to the weave of the cloth as well. But in this example, we are going to put in the nice checky pattern. A lot of this is made easier by a really good paying really good attention when you're doing the drawing in. You can see I've just put in the lines that indicate the shape that those squares have turned into. So I've paid really close attention when I was drawing it in. I only did it freehand, I didn't grid it up, but I just looked really carefully at where these wiggles went to help give it form. And it'll change even more when we get these diagonal lines in. So I'm just going to use a red to start off with. This one's carmine, and these are polychromos pencils that I'm using, oil-based pencils, just so you can see how they work on the same hot press watercolour paper. I'm just going to start with a light layer, just in the usual way. I'm just going right over the grey that I've put in. And you'll see what I mean, that the red will sit on top of the grey, but the grey will show through so that you can still see the definition of the form of the cloth through the colour. It's just a glaze that you're putting over the top. I have to pay a bit of attention to my drawing to make sure I get the right squares coloured in red. You can see here the weave where it goes from the red to the stripy one. It's just made almost like a serrated edge effect on that square. So I'm just going to add that in. You don't have to, when you're representing cloth like this, you don't have to be faithful to exactly the number of lines. You could if you wanted it to be really super accurate, but I would just suggest it when I'm working on something like this. Especially on these bits where the lines are so close together because it's at an odd angle. Just getting them generally in the right direction is all you need to further bring out the form of the cloth. As usual, working right into my darkest darks with the colours I'm using, so that the black areas are built up of the colours. I'm pretty much just going to carry on with this one pencil until I've worked all these areas in. I am noticing if there's differences in tonal value in this little bit. There's some highlighted areas, so I'm just going to alter my pressure as I'm working to take those into account. It's interesting to note areas like that. The stripes, because they're dipping down and then coming forwards, the width of the line alters as it goes, so it's quite nice just to suggest those things. Like I say, you don't have to be 100% accurate, but getting the fatter areas of stripe at the front and then suggesting thinner areas behind, and then again it sweeps up and they become thicker at the back. Sometimes it can be difficult to actually follow one line right the way across. Like there, I can see that in the centre of that like kite shape almost of that square's turned into, there's a dip as if someone's stuck their finger right in the middle, and where it goes down, I know that those lines are going to be depressed into it, so I'm going to do lines that curve downwards like that, and then just take the ends of those and curve outwards for the edges of that dimple. Again, just suggesting it. I know that it does that because I can see that, so I'm just kind of inventing myself where they go. As long as they follow in the right kind of direction, it'll look good. Nobody's going to inspect your work and count the stripes. And here again, you can see that that bit goes, it's like a groove, like at the end of a channel coming out, so I'm going to make my stripes follow that groove shape, and then where the cloth comes outwards, I'm going to follow the curve of the direction it bows. Just paying attention to this area here because there is like a highlight, so it's a bit of a difference in tone. I'm going to follow the tone of the tonal underdrawing and make sure that I do a darker area of red over the darker grey, just to keep that highlight, because it's an important highlight for the form of the cloth. The very edge of that, where that gutter becomes like a little spout almost. I would say things like that, things that affect the form and how something sits and how it looks weighted on your paper, are more important than what the pattern is. You could put any pattern over this, like I said before, any colour, any pattern, and as long as you've got the basic underdrawing in that suggests the weightedness of how the folds are all sitting on top of each other, then whatever you do on top of it will look fine. Just trying to get a little bit of the texture of those stripes of the weave even in the plain red bits. It's worth noting as well that on something like this piece here, the stripes at the front will appear to be further apart than the ones further back. Just a bit of an optical illusion. I think I've got them all there, so now I can just, oh, maybe that one as well, start coming in and checking for checking that I still can tell the form by the tones. So if I've lost any of my grey, I need to come back in over the top with it. And then I'm just going to adjust the colour of this red, working all over the same squares I've already been over. I think I might just add that dark area there in. I was going to end the picture there, but I think it'll just help to suggest that going off there. So I'm just deepening down into the darkest darks, using the red, going over it all. Just following over where the dark grey is. Obviously only on squares where it's red, although I'll carry a little bit of the red into the grey anyway. So there I notice where it's going over a really dark area of grey, it's pushing in. Just by making that area of the line darker, pressing on more with the colour, it's reinforcing that shaping. Take a little bit of this red into the dark shadows underneath. Then I'm going to go back to my dark grey. Just go over some of these. But I'm going to bring in a bit of indigo. Just slipped a bit there with it. And back to the dark grey. And I'm going to change to a different red. This one's called Geranium. This square here is so crumbled over that stripes are quite confusing, so I'm just kind of suggesting it any old way I think looks alright. I'm not too worried about the stripe police coming and telling me off. I think it'll be fine. It's at the back anyway. It's not a focal point of the composition. And because these areas don't really, they do have a little bit of difference in tone in them. They have some sort of highlighted areas, but predominantly they're a solid colour. So I'm not layering up in the usual gradual way that I normally do. This is only the second glaze we've put over, but I'm pressing on quite hard because I know that I want it to be that nice dark solid red. Add a bit of texture on these areas. And this one, using that same technique of making slightly thicker and darker in the centre where it disappears inwards, give that effect. I'm just going to use the grey, the paler one I think, just to give some indication of the weave, where those stripes, the weave stripes go, following on from the red ones, but take those lines through the white as well. To my red. I'm just gone a little bit over with the red there, so I'm just going to fetch it back with an eraser. We're only working with the one colour, it should rub out quite easily. I think it's getting to a point where just a few more squares to go over in the red, and I think it's getting pretty much there. And I'd say we're pretty much there. So I hope you can see that the most important thing is to get the initial form drawn in, the darkest darks and the lightest lights, just to suggest the structure of your scrumpled piece of cloth. Then it really is up to you how you treat the surface pattern of it. The texture and the pattern and the colour you put in is entirely up to you. Once the structure's in, all the hard work's done for you and it'll still look fab.